All right, today we're cracking open one of the most famous and, let's be honest, infamous political pamphlets ever written, the Communist Manifesto. Now, our goal here isn't to debate it or pick a side, it's to journey into its core ideas and understand what its authors, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, were actually trying to say.
The book kicks off with this incredibly powerful, almost spooky line. You have to picture the scene. It's 1848, and revolutions are flaring up all across Europe. So these words immediately drop you into that world. Communism wasn't just an idea. It was a force, a specter that the old powers of the continent were terrified of.
So why even write this? Well, Marx and Engels tell you right up front. They were tired of all the rumors and scary stories, what they called this nursery tale of the specter. They wanted to set the record straight and just put it all out there. This was their way of saying, you want to know what we believe? Here it is for the whole world to see. To really get what they're aiming for, you have to start with their fundamental theory of history. For them, pretty much everything boils down to one single relentless conflict. This right here, this is the engine driving the entire argument. The authors are saying, look, if you zoom out and look at all of human history, what you're really seeing is one long story of conflict between social classes, the people on top and the people on the bottom, the oppressors and the oppressed. And they trace this idea through time. You know, in the ancient world, it was freeman versus slave. In Roman times, patrician and plebeian. In the Middle Ages, lord and serf. They're arguing that it's the same fundamental struggle, just with different costumes and settings. And in their era, they believed it had reached its final, ultimate form. So, in the 19th century, they saw society simplifying into two huge opposing teams. On one side, you have the bourgeoisie, the new capitalist class, the ones who own the factories, the land, all the means of production. And on the other side, the proletariat, the modern working class, who own pretty much nothing except their own ability to work, which they have to sell to survive. This, for them, was the final showdown. Now here's where it gets really fascinating. You'd think the manifesto would just be a takedown of the bourgeoisie, right? But it's not. It actually portrays them as this incredibly powerful, world-changing, revolutionary force.
I mean, according to this text, the bourgeoisie basically turned the world upside down. They smashed the old feudal system and all its traditions, leaving nothing behind but, as they put it, naked self-interest. They created a global market, built massive cities, and forged the modern nation-state. In short, they completely remade the world. And you can almost feel the awe in the writing. The authors are saying, forget the pyramids, forget the Roman aqueducts. What the bourgeoisie has created in just a few short generations is more productive, more massive, and more colossal than anything that came before. It was a total explosion of human potential. And here's the absolute key. Unlike old ruling classes who needed things to stay the same, the bourgeoisie can't survive without constant change. They have to keep revolutionizing production, which creates constant uncertainty and disruption in society. It's the very engine of their existence. As the book famously says, all that is solid melts into air. But, and this is a huge but, this is where the whole argument pivots. The manifesto claims that this incredibly dynamic system has a fatal flaw. It contains the seeds of its own destruction and is, in fact, forging the very tools that will bring about its end. So you have to ask, right? If the bourgeoisie is so powerful, what's the problem? The manifesto uses this brilliant metaphor. It's like a sorcerer who's conjured up these immensely powerful spirits from another world, and now he can't control them anymore. The very things that make the system so productive are the very things that are going to tear it apart. The core problem, they say, is found in the system's crises. But these are weird crises. They're not like the famines of the past, which were crises of scarcity. These are crises of abundance. The system periodically breaks down because it has created too much industry, too much commerce. It literally chokes on its own success. And this is the 1-2 punch, according to the text. The weapons that will destroy the system are these bizarre crises of overproduction. But the system has also created the very people who are going to wield those weapons, the proletariat. So, who are these proletarians in the eyes of the manifesto? They're more than just workers. They're a commodity, something to be bought and sold. Their work becomes repetitive and soul-crushing, making them nothing more than an appendage of the machine. Their whole existence within the system is just to make more capital for someone else. But here's the twist. As capitalism grows, so does the working class.
The very factories that exploit them also bring them together by the thousands. They start to see they have the same problems, the same enemies. The system that uses them also, unintentionally, organizes them, and they start to feel their own collective strength. And this all leads to the manifesto's most stark and famous prediction. By creating this massive, concentrated working class, the bourgeoisie is ultimately producing its own gravediggers. From the author's point of view, it's not a question of if, but when. The fall of one and the victory of the other are, in their words, equally inevitable.
Okay, so given that whole historical theory, what's the actual game plan? What do the communists, according to this document, actually want to do?
The immediate goals are laid out pretty clearly in 3 basic steps. First, get the workers to recognize themselves as a single, unified class. Second, overthrow the rule of the bourgeoisie. And third, have the proletariat seize political power for themselves. Now, the manifesto dives headfirst into what it knows is the biggest criticism, the #1 charge against them, that they want to abolish private property. This was, and still is, the heart of the controversy. But the authors draw a really sharp line in the sand. They say, hold on, we're not talking about abolishing your personal belongings. Their target is very specific, bourgeois private property. That means the private ownership of the means of production, the factories, the big farms, the kind of property that allows the few to profit from the work of the many. And they argue, hey, for the vast majority of people, this kind of property is already a non-issue because they don't have it anyway. And this all builds to the book's breathtaking climax. It's a direct, passionate appeal to the working class. The message is crystal clear. The system you're in gives you nothing but servitude. It gives you chains. So a revolution isn't a risk. It's the only way to gain everything. You literally have a world to win.
And it closes with this final, thundering call to action. It's not a call for the workers of one country, but for all workers everywhere. The idea is that the struggle isn't national, it's global. The fight transcends borders because the working class is an international class.
So, from a specter haunting Europe to a political force that literally redrew the map of the 20th century, the ideas in this little book have had an unbelievable impact. Which leaves us with one final big question. In our modern world of globalization, automation, and huge wealth disparities, how do the arguments made in this text over 170 years ago still echo and shape the world we live in today?